Hi there, it's Denise Eckert from the Relaxation Lounge, and I love coming on here and having amazing guests sharing their techniques and their tricks to help you reduce the stress in your life. And today I've got Nicole Smith Levay, and what she is a professional dancer turned energy coach who specializes in hosting transformational retreats, utilizing somatic therapies, breath work, and meditation. Well, welcome, Nicole.
Thank you so much for having me, Denise. And I really love your podcast. I'm so excited to be speaking with someone who understands burnout as well as I do. I think we'll have a good chat today.
Yeah. Now, what inspired you to go from professional dancer to an energy coach?
Yeah, I mean, it was one of those kind of falling apart to come together thing. It wasn't part of the plan. But the inspiration was really connected with intuitive knowings I had had the whole time I was dancing that inevitably I would work more in a wellness space and less of a performative space with dance or a technical space with dance. So yeah, so what happened was it was kind of overlapped with some chronic stress and burnout from being a perfectionist, high achiever, a very driven performer. I like to compare it to the NBA and basketball. Like I was striving for that top, 2 or 3% of the dance industry in New York City, which is the capital of the dance world. I feel, at least here in America, and I was working very hard, kind of from most people's perspective, you'd call it under earning as well. Probably working like 60-hour weeks, moving my body. It's a double edged sword because, gosh, the joy of movement and, doing what you love and you're passionate about and all that. Uh, but also really, really struggling with self care, um, listening to these aches and pains that kept coming up that I kept ignoring, because my body was my work, was my paycheck. And I was like, I don't have time for this. All those kind of stories that we have, um, like don't want to look at it like it's too big, these recurrent things. So I myself actually got into breath work and somatics, Kundalini meditation around that time just to kind of cope with the stress of my schedule, to lessen how much fatigue and pain I had. And yeah, eventually there was that, in tarot, the tower card moment where it all started to fall apart. The body workers that were helping me were like, this is not just stress. Something else physiologically is happening here. And then when I, started seeing some specialists in the city that were, particular to back pain, they noticed that my legs actually are different lengths. So it was kind of a miracle that I got to that level of technical dancing. And they were like, why would this be? Like they measured the bones. It wasn't just that my hip was hiked up. And I was just like, I don't know. Does that just happen to some people? And then it was like, oh yeah, I broke my leg when I was a toddler. I was in a car accident with my parents, and it kind of uncovered this whole thing within my family system that nobody wanted to talk about the accident and how serious it was and what doctors said, and why my parents actually started me in dance. The doctors were like, her legs may not grow to be the same length, but if you maybe start her in something like ballet, she could be more symmetrical. Um, so yeah, so that inevitably there was a whole month where I was laying on my boyfriend's couch, who's now my husband and the father of my child. And I couldn't move. I was, like 28 And at the peak of my performing career, I was like traveling all around the world with different dance companies and teaching at all these schools and everything. And yeah, but I just wasn't listening to the signs. So it was an abrupt stop. And then I had a huge loss and a grieving process once I recognized I can't dance barefoot anymore. I can't dance in ballet slippers because that asymmetry is what's causing everything. So I basically lost all my work and just took a deep dive in the stuff I could still do sitting up: Kundalini meditation, breath work. I got my coaching certification because I had always been a very mentoring kind of teacher, and students would call me, "Thanks, coach," or "I need a pep talk, coach." So I thought maybe this could be something I'll explore. And then many years later, I got my master's degree in somatic psychology because I recognized that so much of the, you know, moods around stress and anxiety have to do with like underlying trauma, like I had as well. And I wanted to understand how to, keep people grounded and resourced, like, able to tolerate the changes in energy that happen when we're processing trauma and we're making sense of it, because mine happened so abruptly and painfully, and I went through like a really deep healing process. And so yeah, so that's what kind of put it all together for me. And now I finished that degree at the end of 2017, and here we are, 2022. Yeah, Power Within Healing was born from all of that. Just keep moving was kind of my mantra, even when I couldn't physically move. Like, how do I keep the energy moving? How do I keep this life force that's trying to work through me, as me, alive and well, even in pain and in great loss?
Wow, that's quite the story. I mean, you're in such a competitive industry where, number one, yes, the hours, the competition, you've got to be perfect. And here you are dealing with such a disability that you weren't even aware of until, yeah, your body just went, that's enough. And wow. Like,
Absolutely.
I commend you for being here. That's amazing.
Oh,
I
thank
mean,
you.
and thank you for what you're doing now. Now, can you explain a little bit what somatic therapy is?
Yes, absolutely. So, somatic therapy takes the greater field of somatics and it combines it with more traditional talk therapy that, or psychotherapy that many people are used to, creating that relationship with a therapist, to try to get to know our both our strengths and things that we want to work on and repair those things in like a mutual uplifting relationship. The greater field of somatics is basically operating uh, under the belief system that I think many of your listeners probably are already awakening to or awake to, that the mind, body, and spirit are not separate. They're actually coexisting all at the same time, and we each individually have different, sectors that we may relate more to. Someone that grew up as a thinker, may have more awareness of their thoughts, or someone who grew up in a family system that were feelers and they talked about their feelings, very expressive, may have more access to that. For me, a family very repressed in those two areas. But my dad and his dad were athletes, and my mom an artist. So I had this connection with, how do my thoughts and emotions show up in my body? So that's the field of somatic therapy. There's different modalities and, like you said, tips and tools and skills to access one or more of those sectors at once and kind of create some cohesion and integration in parts of us that may feel very like separate and isolated, and, like I was saying, very compartmentalized. Things that may feel too overwhelming for us to feel and heal on our own. Somatics has that other practitioner partner in it with you to help you through it gradually in a trauma sensitive way. But I feel like everything I do falls under the umbrella of somatics, but somatic therapy is what I do more with like one-on-one clients and the group work I do on retreats. But I also feel like the Kundalini meditation and breath work and ecstatic dance and yoga in general, like it all fits under somatics. And, you know, just different styles, different flavors appeal to different people.
And what's the actual definition of somatics?
Yeah, I think it would be that it would be like a field of study that rests on the thought that the mind and body and spirit are one and the same.
Okay, sounds good. Now, what do you recommend for people that, or for women that are experiencing stress? Because you've got a really unique way of looking at things, considering what you've been through.
Yeah. Yeah, I loved your first episode where you like broke it down into like 5 ways to kind of like approach our burnout. And I was like, look at her. We do a lot of the same things. You know, firstly, when it feels like you can't slow down, that's probably the exact time to like take a pause, you know, take a day off, take a weekend to yourself, go on a retreat, you know, have some quality time with a loved one. Just kind of take inventory of like what's going on right now. What's in your world? Because a lot of times stress is when we feel out of our own self-agency, our own power. It feels like lots of things are happening to us. We're powerless. We get more exhausted. It's this like vicious cycle. So I think just taking that pause, and I'm like a big journaler, was very nerdy in school growing up. So I love to like write it all out, draw it all out, put it down and out of you on paper of like what's going on. And then from there, you know, assess like what things, like you said too, like what things are just not working for you anymore. Whether, if you can't yet tell if it's aligned or not, like what's making you bitter, resentful. You know, what do you have like a lot of I call it charge around, you know, when that relationship or that gig, that job comes up, like do you feel like your body gets like all charged up, like you're gonna fight someone or run away or something? And just look at like, are there more options for you there? Then you know, if you're feeling you have to and you should, and you're shoulding all over yourself, like that saying, like
Yeah.
maybe there are some things that we can discern, kind of cut away from, lessen. And after you make a little space for yourself there, that's because usually if you go right for like more self-care when people are stressed, they're like, when would I have time to do that? Right. And I know you said that too in your first episode. Then you might have that free night a week to nurture a passion of yours or just anything that helps you feel more grounded and relaxed. And chances are it might be something that actually regulates your nervous system and takes you out of that fight or flight, that state of arousal or charge, and it brings you more to your peaceful center. From there, you know, then things start to, that's when alignment starts to like work for me, I find. And for a lot of my clients is it's like, oh, now I can take a breath. Really? I couldn't take a breath when I first realized I was stressed, but now I can, and recognize that, you know, there's more here available to me. And sometimes like doing a lot less is more for me in the near future too. Just taking a big old pause.
Yeah. And that's what I found when I started coaching women with stress. I mean, that's why I'm really not doing it anymore. They wouldn't own up to it. Like it was always, I'm too busy, I'm too busy, I'm too stressed, I'm too stressed. And it's almost like you're stressing yourself over being stressed. And then you're not taking that step back to even just look at what's stressing you out. You're just hyping yourself and hyping yourself.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, the first thing I would hear out of women's mouths, I don't have time.
Mm-hmm.
Well, what are you
And
doing?
yeah, right, right. And
If you're talking to me about how stressed you are, take those 5 minutes and do something else.
yes, yes, like you said, that 5-minute meditation. And I know I wrote to you that I approach like meditation from I'm laughing from the standpoint that I was like, I cannot meditate. Like I was that person in class. I was doing advanced asana, because I was a dancer. So I could like do the headstand and the touch my nose backwards behind my heel. And then at the end of class, they'd have that 3 minutes of mindfulness. And I would be like, should I go to the bathroom? Like I was like, I can't sit here and do this. So the way that I think help a lot of high achievers and stressed out, professionals who are like, what's going to work for me here is I'm like, I get it. Can we just start with this 3-minute breath work pattern? Can we just start with this 5-minute mantra practice? And if I can check back in with you in 2 weeks and see how that landed for you, doing that a little bit of that every day for 2 weeks, then maybe you'll trust me more to like add an hour into your schedule a week and things like that. But the only kind of meditation that worked for me was more active, not now I like mindfulness, and I actually did some before I came on the call. But being that my mind was so quick, my body was so busy, I needed like something to like do with my hands, with my thoughts, with my mouth, my voice, to actually tap into a little space where I was like, oh, it's not so crazy here. It's not so crazy in this 3 or 5 minutes. Maybe I could have more of this throughout my day. But yes, for 100%, generally people come to me like, I'm called to work with you, but also I feel like I have no time to work with you. So.
Yeah. Now you mentioned that, the different kinds of yoga. I've heard of Kundalini yoga, but I've never heard it referred to as a meditation.
Yeah, well, there's separate parts in the practice. There are kriyas, which are basically repetitive movements with breath and sometimes mantra. And it almost feels more like, to me, it felt more like a dance class because it wasn't posture to posture in a flow. It wasn't, like vinyasa and or restorative or anything where you would stay still in a posture. You were always kind of like moving with your breath. But yeah, there are hundreds of meditations, and I really only teach the ones that I practiced for a length of time where I feel like they're part of me as well. I know they work, and there's different meditations for different things. Folks that need to settle a bit more, there's something that's going to drop you into more of a grounded seated place. There's also different meditations for folks who feel like they're actually stuck in freeze or shut down and they're not inspired. Different breathing patterns that actually bring you more into like a place of possibility and warmth and flow and creativity too. And then another breathwork technique I use is David Elliott's breathwork technique, which is the laying down practice. 2 inhales through the mouth and 1 long exhale out the mouth. And that one's done to music. So it feels like a little journey. Those are nice for people who maybe are like going through so much physically and emotionally that like the Kundalini sitting up is a little too intense. Maybe they don't practice yoga very often. I find the breath work is like a nice, like it's powerful, but you're also just laying on the floor and it's 3 breaths. Like we're all inhaling and exhaling every day. So that's a good one for people to do.
Oh, you're just, well, there's a lot of different kinds of meditation. I mean, I know of a few. I like how you've worked in breath work and meditation and almost like a yoga all at the same time, which is really neat. Because I know for myself, I'm not a great meditator. That's why I really like EFT or something moving. Because if I'm sit there, I'm like Julia Roberts in Eat, Pray, Love. Like she's sitting there going, am I doing this right? Am I doing this
Right.
right? And that'd be me. Or I'm thinking about my to-do list, or I'm thinking about, everything but what I'm supposed to be doing, right? I find it difficult because I mean, I know I cannot just, once I'm really busy, I cannot just stop. It doesn't
Yeah.
work for me.
And that's like it's a physiological thing too. So, it's like I don't take it personally, and actually think it's like a good sign sometimes when I feel like I have a really bad meditation session, like that old voice comes back, because I'm like, oh, look at all that stuff that was just like hanging out in my brain that I wasn't really paying attention to, but now it comes up in that moment when I get still, and it's bringing it more into the conscious mind, and it's like a little bit of like a cleansing and a clearing. We don't even realize that that's what's happening. So I also encourage people to, if they come to my class once and they aren't sure, I like encourage them to try twice, and definitely if they feel a little shift in those first couple sessions and they feel drawn to keep going, it is going to take a few months for the more long-term effects that you hear people preaching about, right? Like that it worked for me and meditation totally changed my life and all this. It does take a while for your nervous system to settle. But you must have your own, you said EFT is your primary
Yeah.
relaxation practice. Yeah, I love EFT too. Do you know
Because you're
body talk?
thinking, right? You're thinking and
Yeah. And you're
you're,
doing something with breath. I do
yeah,
the body talk tapping a lot. You know that one?
yeah,
The cortices? Yeah,
yeah.
I like
Yeah,
that
there's so
one.
many different practices out there.
Right?
It's just amazing. So we're going to start wrapping this up. So what would
Okay.
you like our listeners to walk away with today? What piece of advice to lower their stress?
I think, yeah, firstly, give yourself grace and credit for how hard you're working, and these signs of stress and illness and fatigue that arise, like I do feel they're messengers from spirit and soul to you know have the courage to make some changes in your life. And um so give yourself some grace and permission to start slowly and find that sector or that avenue for you that allows you to just feel like you downshift a little bit. Maybe you don't totally park the car or you don't slow the car down to 15 miles an hour, but something that is small and titrated, like meaning just little doses of this slowing down medicine for you. Um, and then maybe you'll give yourself permission to have that holy pause, I call it, where you're like, whoa, what's not working here? Let me clear this out. So yeah, so that would be my advice. And I do have a community that does these practices together called Soul Fitness Society. And we meet 4 times a month around the moons, and 2 other times we do breath work and kundalini and sometimes some ecstatic dance on pre-record. So yeah, so that there's a place to find me there as well.
Well, with the society, is it a Zoom call 4 times a month or?
It is. I lived in both California and New Jersey and New York City, so I taught in all those places. And then even pre-pandemic, I was teaching on Zoom. So yeah, so it's like a virtual studio platform. There's lots of recordings, and I bring in guests that do similar things as well. But yeah, it's 4 times a month on Zoom. Very fun. I have special glow lighting behind me. I can color my room red and blue, and yeah, it's a beautiful practice. Lots of different cameras set up in here. And then I always give time for people to share as well. Um, if they'd like to kind of integrate it and like say some things out loud about what they're working on right now. So it's a little uh lunar lady kind of club. Everybody's very into the moon cycles and stuff like that, and we practice all this embodiment energy work together in community.
I love that. Now, I understand you have something to offer the listeners today as well.
I do. I have a gift. It's a coupon code, actually. If you commit to try Soul Fitness Society for 3 months, we will give you, your listeners of Relaxation Lounge, 1 month free. And yeah, the code is Relax Now. It's one of my favorite songs. You can relax now. Come on, I'll show you how. So yeah, it's Relax Now. I think it can be all in capitals or all lowercase. And I'll definitely share that link with you so they can take advantage of it and give it a try. Give it that 90-day try to see if, you know, a couple hours a month with some tangible take home things that you can do daily makes a difference in your nervous system and how you process the stress of everyday life.
Wow, it sounds amazing. Well, anybody that's listening and has a question for Nicole, please reach out and ask her. So wherever you're listening or wherever you're watching this, I will have all her information there for her. So thank you so much, Nicole. Such an amazing interview and such great information.
Oh, thank you so much, Denise. And I hope you'll come and be part of Soul Fitness Society someday too. That would be great. Love to have you speak to my folks as well.
I'd love to. Well, thank you so much today, and thank you for listening, and see you in the next episode. If you're looking for more ways to reduce the stress in your life, please visit www.therelaxationlounge.info. Here I've got access to a free Facebook page where you can get support, information on the podcast where I interview different individuals who share their techniques to help you reduce your stress, plus a membership that you can join where you can come and do stress-reducing practice on demand anytime you need to reduce the stress in your life and create more happiness in your world. I'll see you in the lounge.